Welcome to the next edition of Pizz-Spectives. My name is Pizzichetta, founder of Mont Wealth. And today we're going to just change the dial a little bit and shift it towards more around business, improving returns in business, but also protecting data, but also protecting wealth when it comes to cybersecurity. Now, I've got a special guest today, Nik Devidas. Actually, Nik inspired the Pizz-Spectives podcast, so thank you, Nik. But he is now the CEO of a firm called Axelo. And as I mentioned earlier, the founder of a podcast called Do Landers, which inspired this. So Nik has actually built a business, and it's a bit of an ecosystem to help small and medium businesses run efficiently, scale faster, but also protect the data and wealth. And he calls it cyber resilient, something we believe is vital, not just for business owners, but for investors too. As I said earlier, as we focus on returns in the investment, we should also be thinking about how do we improve our business returns and returns on security and outsourcing. Nik, welcome to Pizz-Spectives.
Thank you, Rob. It's great to be here. I've listened to every episode of the Pizz-Spectives and read the daily as well.
Oh, there you go. You're the one guy that listens. So thanks so much.
Does that make me a super fan?
Fan. Thank you very much. It's inspirational and motivational at the same time as we continue to grow. Actually, before we did get started on the business itself, the Do Landers podcast, what brought that about?
Oh, that was just a conversation between two mates. So myself and Blake Collins, who's the other co-host. We just wanted to bring interesting stories to people. And we also had a creative itch that we wanted to scratch pretty hard, and ended up being podcasting being the way that we could do that.
I must admit, they are very entertaining conversations you have with some of those guests, so I highly recommend that one as well. So, Nik, let's talk a little bit about the Axelo. So, your background and how did it all get to this point?
I fell into outsourcing because when I was 20 years old, I was still at university, and a few people started to ask me, "Oh, can you help me fix a computer? Can you make a PowerPoint presentation for me?" And one thing led to another. All of a sudden, I was fixing computers, going to people's homes, making PowerPoint presentations, and people were willing to pay for that. And that morphed into me finding a business partner, Lucas, and we're business partners for 20 years. We ran a business called Rock IT, and that was acquired in December 2023, which was a 20 years and a month to the day of starting that business. I've always been involved in outsourcing and big believer in people focusing on their core business and outsourcing the things that they weren't experts in. And IT was one of those original services that people wanted to outsource because they didn't have the technical knowledge themselves, and technology went from a luxury item to a highly vital utility part of businesses. So that's where it all started and where it's continued on today.
There you go. And so how did you then get to Axelo and how did that come about?
So in the sale of Rock IT in 2023, I took a part of that business, which was a cyber advisory that I'd been building over time. And Lucas and I took that and we started that working together. Lucas had a little bit of change of heart. He was quite comfortable in the IT services space. So he took a position, is doing really well there at First Focus, which is the business that acquired Rock IT. I continued on with Four Walls Advisory, met the guys who founded Axelo, and they already had two business units in that already in Acario, which is a BPO finance and accounting offshore provider located in Sri Lanka and India, and Cloudmark, which is a software development and software testing company located predominantly in Australia. They wanted cyber as part of that overall service mix, because looking at the clients, which ranges anything from SMB to enterprise, there's three key pillars that every business wants to address. And that is they want to boost their efficiency, enhance their profitability, whilst reducing their operational risk all at the same time. So the three parts of the business work well to address that.
Interesting. You talk about improved business profitability. As a financial advisor, I continually talk about investment returns, but little do we actually focus on our own businesses and how to improve those. And we don't know what we don't know, Nik. Let's be honest, because we're stuck in the day to day and we do our job and we just continue to grind and hope for the best and hope to drive top line. So then can you talk a little bit about, for those unfamiliar with outsourcing, exactly how does Axelo help businesses improve that profitability?
Yeah, so it varies, but the vision for Axelo is really you're running a business, and it could be any type of business. We work with the travel sector, we work with a bunch of different sectors, finance, you name it. People don't start businesses or join businesses to do things like bookkeeping and lodging tax returns and wearing all of those hats. So if you start a business to do a thing, and we'll use travel as an example, if you want to be a tour operator, for example, you don't want to be doing all of these other things along the way. So you want to find either you want to hire people internally to run that, which is in Australia, it's very expensive to do that. And typically you won't have a full-time position for those people, or just outsource the function that you want done. And bookkeeping is a pretty universal task that needs to be done. So you find a bookkeeper and then you start questioning, how do I find a bookkeeper? Who do I trust? Is it onshore? Is it offshore? Do I trust people? And then it becomes quite challenging to find the right provider or people.
Yeah. A lot of businesses get caught up in the admin as well. So I'm assuming bookkeeping also then ties up to, or kind of leads to the next part, which is the support.
Yeah, that's right. So again, it's, can you handle your calendar? Can you handle your email? Can you handle booking systems? Can you handle lodging things and filling out forms, all of that sort of stuff, which again, if you're a business owner or you're working in a business, is it the best use of your time, especially in Australia and the UK where we have good strongholds? Is it the best use of your time? Can you find labor that will do that work at a cheaper rate? And that's known as labor arbitrage, obviously. That's fundamentally the sorts of things that people should be thinking about when they're looking at their day-to-day. Are they doing repetitive tasks? We call them swivel chair tasks. And that's a good way to start thinking about, are there things that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis that are repetitive? And if they're repetitive, high chance that it's something that you can map as a process. And if you can map something as a process, you can actually hand that off to someone else to do.
Yeah. And do you have some case studies or some examples on how the outsourcing has actually improved the profitability of a business?
Yeah, look, there's a number of ways you can look at these things. A lot of people, a lot of business owners think, I just want to grow revenue, and revenue is everything that matters, without necessarily thinking that if the costs follow the revenue, you have a higher revenue, but you've got a higher cost base and your profit is not changed at all. There's a great saying that I learned in my time in business, and that is, revenue is vanity, often the vanity of the business owner. Profit is sanity, but cash is reality.
Right.
And you often get stuck in these sorts of pursuits of high revenue and forget that if your costs are rising at the same amount, you're actually no better off than you were necessarily when you had a lower revenue. And I certainly got caught out with that in my early days of chasing high revenue. So in terms of case studies for profit growth, it's a pretty simple thing. If you can get a job done, and today we've got a changing landscape with AI, which is not really AI, it's automation of, can you get someone to do the tasks at a lower rate, or can you find a product or service that will do that task automatically for you? And that's the Goldilocks sort of thing. There's not going to be in the short term some AI product that's going to come around and do everything for you, but there's certain gaps within processes or processes entirely that you should be able to automate. And that's where you start to see real profit gains.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been Sam Altman before he became famous. He said that, I'm going to use him as the quote, it might not be him, that there will be the first billion-dollar company with one employee. Someone will work out how to deliver a service using a whole bunch of automation tools to deliver something of value to their customer base. We yet to see it. It's probably on the horizon.
No doubt. And so we've spoken a little bit about Acario, which is the outsourcing business. So then
Yes.
you spoke a little bit about the automation. And does CloudMark help clients with the automation and the software and the infrastructure? Is that what CloudMark is?
Yeah, so there's a number of things that CloudMark does. It's advanced software engineering. So at the top end, in terms of enterprise space, if an enterprise customer has built software themselves, or they've taken a product off the shelf like a SAP or something like that and customized it, you need to then have a third-party auditor to come in and assess that code. But the other sorts of tools that we've built over time that I can talk about, for example, a university has many different ways in which a student or a prospective student can contact the university. It could be email, could be a chat online, could be a web form, could be WhatsApp. And they all come from different channels. And if you don't actually have all of that come to a common source, you can have 4 different conversations occurring with 4 different people, all for the one conversation. So the tool that they built brings all of those conversations together, and it knows that it's the same person who's contacting the universities through 4 or 5 different channels, brings it all down to an AI bot, which can answer certain types of questions and then knows when to hand it off to a human when it's the right time with all of the conversations through all the different channels. So that's the sort of innovation that we're able to build with CloudMark.
And I'm just trying to think more broadly here, Nick. That kind of tool and software development can help so many businesses, small businesses that are looking for that support. I'm just trying to think about the current listeners who are running small businesses, whether sole traders or 1 to 20 people in their own practice. How do they drive efficiency in what they do? And that's a great example, right?
Yeah, and it's those sorts of things which most people don't think about that is even possible. You're just going, you look at a trade, for example, if you're a plumber or electrician going out and doing your trade, but then you've got to do quotes. You've got to take calls and emails from people, and you're not thinking about this stuff all the time. And everything I've heard about trades is they often come undone quite quickly around the 5 to 10 year mark when you have to start quoting for jobs. And your mind's just not there because you're doing your actual task at hand. And then you could do quoting at night. Like you're owning a job. You don't own a business
Yeah.
when you look at it like that.
And then inherently, we spoke earlier around growth and costs. And I was just thinking then, as a sole trader, oh, what's this going to cost me? How expensive can this be? So how do you work with the client to provide some sort of cost benefit in the outcome?
Yeah, so it is a funny thing that we've had a lot of people say to us, "Oh, I'm not big enough yet to use outsourcing."
Yeah.
And it's one of the funniest conversations I have when I say, "You are the perfect business to outsource." Because if you look at, and I'm going to use, rough sort of figures here. So don't come to me, listeners, and say, I want that specific price, but it's often 60% cheaper to use an outsourced offshore provider for these swivel chair tasks than it is to buy it onshore. So whether it's bookkeeping or administration or something like that, you're probably looking at, for a casual rate, $40 plus an hour to use onshore resources for these things. Whereas offshore, it can be $15 to $20 an hour. So you start thinking, if it's half the cost or even less than half the cost to offshore, what are the things that I could do? And so I'll keep going back to this swivel chair task concept of all the things that you're doing on a repetitive basis. And that could be quoting, and it could be writing up notes. It could be a whole host of different things. Even if your offshore assistant is using AI to assist them, it's still infinitely cheaper. And so the right outsourcing provider should be able to offer you 3 different types, or probably a couple more, but let's talk about 3 different types of models. One is hourly basis, which would be if you use them 5 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours a week, you just pay for what you use. A part-time resource, which is the same resource who gives you 20 hours a week worth of coverage, and then a full-time resource where it is a one-to-one person. And you can also get into different models where you have just an SLA, so a service level agreement to deliver a certain outcome, and anyone will do the work from a pool of resources, and that may suit your business better. But along the way with this, what you can't do when you outsource and offshore is you can't just say, hey, do my bookkeeping, catch up at the end of the month. Nothing works like that.
Yep.
It's the same as if you hired someone who's going to sit next to you in the office. You have to put them through training, and you have to tell them, this is the way that we do business, and I want you to do the bookkeeping or the task or whatever it is in a particular way. And that can be the same for IT systems, for HR, for whatever. It has to be done the way that you want it. And the closer that you train your staff, and you've got to treat them like your staff, the better the outcome will be. So it's not only train them once, it's train them continuously, keep a close tab on what they're doing, but you don't actually have to do the work. If you find out that there's a lot of duplication, it typically comes down to a lack of training and lack of process mapping. But that's why we have a process mapping team and a transition team to help our clients properly map out everything so that it's a good handover and it's a good ongoing experience. So to speak a little bit more about quality when it comes to outsourcing and offshoring, you can get cheaper. You can absolutely go to an Airtasker type place and get something for $10 an hour, and you're going to get a $10 an hour job. And it's just going to be random and it's going to be inconsistent. And that will just frustrate you. You'll end up going, I'll just do it myself. So look for businesses like ours that have ISO accreditation, which means we do audits on, so we're audited and we actually audit our work before the work is then given and handed over to our end customers. And those are the sorts of things that, yes, you pay slightly more than other outsourcing, but if you accepted that you go to outsource to get a cheaper rate and you're going to offshore to get an even bigger discount on the hourly rate, assume that you can get that anywhere. It's then what's the quality of the output and how can that be verified that you're actually getting quality work done?
Understood. So it sounds like it's a perfect little scenario for people that are looking to just focus on what they're good at, which is plumbing, marketing, financial planning, advice, and let someone like yourself or an organization like yourself do all the back office swivel chair stuff that just allows you to grow your top line.
Correct. And look, talking about marketing and PR and those sorts of things, look, we've got a good marketing function internally, but one of the virtual assistants that I use in the four walls cyber advisor, which we haven't talked about yet, is they use AI to produce an output for me, such as blog posts and things like that. Now, you've got to give guidance when you're using AI for blog because the world is now just full of generic AI blog posts. So if you know what you're doing in that space and you get good advice on how to actually write documents, you can get documents written, you can get reports written that don't look like AI because they're effectively, think of it as AI augmented as opposed to just AI slop that's just been generated by default. So there's a lot of ways that you can enhance your offshore team, break down potential language and cultural barriers quite easily by leveraging good tools.
Got it. So you did speak about Four Walls briefly then. Four Walls is a cybersecurity business that you did start and well done on that. It's obviously a very fast growing sector in Australia, but interestingly, there is plenty of going on around cyber and cyber threats. We've had Medibank, we've had banks, we've had superannuation funds, and most recently the Qantas hack of 6,000 members. Thankfully, I'm not an executive chairman or in the lounge, so my data hasn't been leaked just yet, but it is concerning. So I'd love to have a chat with you and understand better, how do we protect our data? And then how do we protect our wealth? And how does Four Walls help people do that?
Yeah, there's a common misconception that only enterprises get breached. And the only real part of that statement is enterprises are the only ones that make the news.
Mm,
If you go to business.vic.gov, which is Business Victoria, they say that a cyber attack happens every 6 minutes in Australia.
wow.
And those are the ones that are reported as well, with an
Mm,
average cost of $50,000 per attack. And that's come out in June 2025. So if you can accept that cyber attacks are very real and very relevant, they don't look like they do in the movies, that probably overstates things a little bit. And people often look at their own business and go, what's the big deal? I don't hold any personal information. And it's not just about personal information. That's the stuff that's making the news because that's what matters. So your Qantas example, unfortunately, I wasn't in that breach either. Medibank and Optus and Latitude, many people were caught up in all three of those, which had their driver's license, passports, all of that sort of thing. If you go and set up a bank account today, what do they ask for? They ask for 100 points of ID. So if
mm,
that information is out there, but it's not just about that. Ransomware is another high risk event, and ransomware stops you from using your systems. If you've heard of the company called Ingram Micro, they're a massive global distributor of IT products and services. They are currently in, I think, day 6 of a global ransomware outage, which is stopping a whole heap of supply chains. So again, these are enterprise companies that are making the news. In the small business world, it can be anything from having your email systems breached that have the long-term impacts of things like invoice fraud. So we've had plenty of examples of that where invoices are getting changed. They're not making any other noise in their environment except the bank details at the bottom of invoices are being changed, or emails are being sent to customers saying, hey, I've changed my bank account details. All future payments go to here. Verification can come back and say, oh, are you sure about this? Because the bad guys have access to the email account, they're writing an email back saying, yep, I confirm that this is the right thing, that the new bank account details are right. So those sorts of things can happen, and then full lockdown and lockout of systems where you are faced with the choice of, can I restore from backup or do I have to pay a ransom? And so those are the things that typically are affecting small business. The reason why ransomware works is because the bad guys typically will give you an unlock key for your environments. And historically, they've targeted healthcare, smaller medical practices, things like that, which typically don't have good IT systems or backup systems. And if you have backup systems that work and you test it and you can recover your data, ransomware is not that big a threat because you just recover your data. But often people think they have good security practices in place and good backups in place, but they're actually not effective. And an example I can give from my Rock IT days, we took over the support and management of a petrochemical organization who had all of their servers on site, and their server room backed onto their production facility. So highly flammable stuff going on right next to their server farm. And every day a guy in a van turned up and he took the backup tapes, took them away in a van. And the first thing we did was we actually checked the validity of the backups. And sure enough, there was nothing on the backup tapes. So just because you're doing a process and doing a thing doesn't mean that it's actually working the way that it should. Had that company gone up in flames, quite literally, they would have lost everything and their backup tapes had nothing on them. So that's the end of the business. So there's lots of things that I could tell you that are risks to a business. Four Walls was built to address the broader sort of concept of, as you mentioned earlier, cyber resilience. So cybersecurity is what everyone understands. It's a strategy. It's designed to protect your systems. Whereas cyber resilience is all about understanding and accepting that things can and will go wrong because humans are humans. They'll forget to put stuff on a backup tape. They'll accidentally send a contract to someone they shouldn't have. They'll leave a door open, those sorts of things. But knowing this and knowing that there are 1,000 different ways that things can go wrong, if you don't have visibility on all of that in a way that you can understand as a business owner or as an executive, then you're flying blind. You can't rely on your IT team, your external IT provider, or IT person internally to have a grip on this stuff because that's not their core focus. Their core focus is making sure that the lights are on and passwords can be reset and the keyboards are working, that kind of thing. What our program is designed to do, it's what we call as a board first approach, meaning it's designed for non-technical people. Boards typically aren't comprised of cyber experts because there's not many board level cyber experts out there, nor are they technical experts, but it is a risk within your organization and they are expected to govern this risk like any other risk. And they can't do that with technical reporting. You can't have your IT team giving an engineering report to the board or to a business owner saying, we're good or we're bad or we need these things. So Four Walls does things like a gap analysis, which very easily highlights the gaps within your organization. It's to an internationally recognized framework. And then your IT team can go and do a cyber uplift program. And you as a board or a business owner can see with very nice and easy to understand visuals, we are doing things, we're better off than we were 6 months ago, and we're making progress, and you get insights and assurance. And that's all that a board fundamentally wants when you're governing a risk. You trust your exec team and your operational team to do things, then you get a third party to do an assessment of your environment, and you should be moving along okay. But the problem is the most overlooked thing in cybersecurity is not the technical controls, because everyone knows you've got to have antivirus, you've got to have spam filters and backups and that sort of thing. It's actually people. So it's staff training is number one by a mile, the most overlooked thing. You can't have people sit on a 45-minute or a 3-hour once a year training session. And that's all that cyber insurance asks. It says binary, do you train your staff once a year? The number of risks that are there for people to accidentally click on or take a phone call and give away information, it's so varied. Bad guys are so sophisticated now, but we're not training people.
Yep.
It needs to be treated the same way that you treat workplace health and safety. The problem at the moment is when you're comparing those two things is one is regulated, one is not. Because people are very good at understanding and managing physical safety for people, slipping on floors and where are the fire exits, that kind of thing. But when it's intangible, when you don't know that you've had a data breach, you don't know what the value of your data is or the value to your end customers, it's really hard to gauge that intangible And it's easy to overlook because, hey, I never had a cyber breach.
Yeah.
I never had ransomware.
So, Nick, what you're saying then is we've got these systems in place. The IT guys have gone to the executive. We've got a robust system. We're under control. But more often than not, it's a human error that allows you to open your gateway to someone to come in and hack and to steal your information. So is that, in summary, to a layman like me that doesn't really understand IT, is that how it works?
Yeah, look, fundamentally, you've also got to have a way of verifying that claim from the IT team, because the IT team is either an employee internally or an external provider. In both those instances, they want to keep their job. So it's really hard. You can't get them to do their own security assessment. That's like asking someone to mark their own homework.
Yeah.
So getting a third party in and to assess things, and we don't have a remediation team, which is really important because we're not here to take the IT team's job internally or the external provider. We work with business owners or executives and boards to say, here's our view of the external environment, and there'll be things that are missed. There are always things that can be missed. And you then work with your IT team, be that internal or external, to develop a cyber uplift program to address the risks. We come back in 6 months, 12 months, or whatever, to do another assessment, and you want to see progress over time. That's what you really want to see. And you, as a non-technical business owner role, you would just want to go, okay, the people are doing their things. I get this report. I can see that things are being done. And if things aren't being done, it's a mixture of two things. One, your IT provider is not moving quickly enough, or you have an authorized budget to do it. But the good thing about that is you have a risk profile that you understand. You can actually look at a sheet of paper and say, I'm sitting at 30%, and I'm okay with that because I either don't have budget to address it, I don't have time to address it, or they're actually not risks that are applicable to the type and scale and type of business for me. Now, in your case, if you've got access to your customers' systems, or you've got access to financial information that, if it got stolen, could be valuable or damaging to your customers or valuable to someone else, you would want to be able to show your customers that, hey, I did all of these things and it still happened. That's better than saying I hadn't done anything about it. So that's typically the way that we phrase it with customers, that it provides a piece of evidence. Insurers will want to see that you're doing things as well, which can help reduce premiums. If you're comparing two businesses who have done nothing and businesses that have done something in terms of understanding their risk profile, then insurance premiums should be altered in that regard.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. So we've got outsourcing. You're never too small to start considering outsourcing your business. We've
You
got,
should be considering it. If you're small and you want to scale quickly, you can either hire people in Australia, which we know is very expensive. You hire someone for $80,000, that equates very quickly, once you add in all the other add-on costs, $120,000. So can you do those things with an external? Probably.
yep. So then we've got software and automation improvement for your own business. We've got security or resilience in your own business from cyber threats. And we can talk about four walls to support that. So what we're coming across is how quickly the world is changing and how we can use outsource facilities or support to strengthen our bottom line, but also grow our top line. And then we've got the protection and the resilience from a business infrastructure focus on cyber threats. And obviously the business can do well there. Nick, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. It was a great conversation, insightful, and hopefully the listeners get plenty out of it and want to look into it a bit more deeper. And if they were to, where do they find information, Nick, about your business?
Just go to axelogroup.com, AXELO group.com, and you can find our contact details there.
Fantastic. Nick, thank you so much. And as always, stay invested, stay patient, and also make sure you stay protected. Thanks, Nick, for your time.
Thanks, Rob. Lovely to be here.
Cheers.